Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's webinar, What to Expect from the Intacct Summer Release. I'm Megan Turco, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we jump in, I'm going to briefly go over how to use your webinar console. The orange arrow on the right side of your screen will let you toggle the control tray open or closed. And on the bottom of that control tray, you'll see a chat window. Please feel free to submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar via the chat function. We will get to those during the Q&A at the end of the webinar, and any questions that we don't get to, we'll definitely be able to answer after through follow-up. Additionally, on your GoToWebinar console, you should see an area for audio settings. If you're calling in through your telephone, please choose the Use Telephone option. And alternatively, if you're calling in or if you're using your computer speakers, please select the Use Mic and Speakers option. Additionally, I do want to note that today's webinar is being recorded. We'll be able to send the slides as well as a link to the recording of the webinar within about 48 hours. So definitely keep an eye out for that email if you're interested in accessing the webinar again or sharing it with any colleagues who couldn't make it with us live today. And with that, I'd like to introduce today's featured speakers. First up, we have Scott Schimberg, who is the partner heading up our Intacct practice here at Armanino. Scott has a mixture of industry experience and has held positions such as controller, VP Finance, and Assistant Controller. He's also a member of the Institute of Management Accountants and has 15 years of consulting experience, during which he's helped numerous companies implement ERP systems. We also have Scott Mengelson, who is Armanino's partner overseeing our CRM practice. Scott has over 20 years of sales and marketing leadership experience. He has consulted and deployed ERP, CRM, and manufacturing process control software to companies like Intel, AMD, National Semiconductor, and LG. Additionally, we do have a bonus speaker who will come up later on today, and we will introduce Sharon Lindsay West, who is the CEO of Track 1099, and Scott will actually get a chance to introduce her a little bit later. So it's great to have all three of you with us here today, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to Scott to get us going.
Thank you, Megan. So today, we're going to go through and talk about the Intacct's Q3 release. Lindsay will go through the 1099s and W9s, and then Scott Mengelson will talk about Salesforce and how we can help you there. So today, we're going to really focus in on some of the big changes that Intacct has made, and I've grouped them into categories, starting with dashboards and reporting. So as many of you know, utilizing the dashboards, that's one of the key benefits of Intacct, is getting your data summarized and useful to you. And having a chart or a graph on the system works out great, but now having the ability to drill down into the details to understand why is something changing or why is there a number the way that it is a big benefit. So the way that it works, if you have a chart that's there, you can click on the chart or the graph, and then it'll pull up in another view the drill down capability as if it were to be just the report in a financial report. And then you could drill down even further under the blue colored links to get more and more detail all the way down to the transaction. That's a great feature when utilizing the graphs. Also, you could do the same thing off of the performance cards. So the performance cards are a great way of getting just real quick metrics. In this case, this example is looking at profit margin. It's comparing it to the prior year, and then being able to drill in and look at the underlying information and calculations of what's driving those changes, and then even drill down again underneath that blue coloring for additional details. If you want to understand the cost of revenue or the details in that area, you can really start driving into those changes and making that information available. Another category in the reporting is being able to do analysis by day metric. We see this really coming into play with our hospitality, healthcare, franchises, retail really cares about same-day sales this year versus last year. And you can now do that on a day-by-day basis for that comparison, which is a great feature leveraging Intacct's dimension of day. Some other additional changes on the reporting. When the HTML view up at the top, they froze the column headers, so when you scroll down, the headers will stay there. So kind of think of that in terms of an Excel file. When you freeze pane the headers across the top, it will now work that way in your HTML view for the reporting, where before the headers just disappeared. The other thing that Intacct has done is put together a custom report writer. So they've always had a custom report writer, and they've had a financial report writer. And the financial report writer has, for a long time, had great information and details and answers and instructions on how to build out a financial report. The custom report writer now has the same look and feel as the financial report writer. It's wizard-based tools, and it has the concept of being able to give you step-by-step process of how to work that through. So I encourage all of you to go in and look at the report writer, the custom report writer, and be able to use that with you and your team. I think it'll be a lot easier to use. And then the other thing around reporting is right on your dashboard. So any reports that you add to a dashboard, if you want to make a change to that report, you used to have to jump out of the dashboard, go to the report, edit it, and then save it again and come back into the dashboard. In this case, right from the dashboard, as long as you have the permissions to do it, you would be able to click on the pencil icon that's there that I have showing here, and you'd be able to make a change to that report right on the fly. All right. So another thing that Intacct has done is made what's called transaction definitions. They've cleaned up the process of it a little bit and made it much easier for end users to help manage the transaction definitions. And so for those that are not familiar with what a transaction definition is it really defines how transactions interact with the rest of the system. So for example, you can define specific GL accounts, you can define ways that a transaction flows from one process to another with these transaction definitions. And so if you have two different workflows or two different processes that need to be done, you can set up unique transaction definitions to really make that workflow unique to your organization and get the data that you're after. So in this case, Intacct has done this for the order processing, purchasing, and as well as inventory. And in this example, we've pulled up a slide of the sales invoice definition. And instead of having multiple tabs, they've changed it to just 3 now. They've made it a UI that is a little bit easier to read and understand with drop-down menus, that you only get the menus and the menu options if the permissions are turned on and the feature has been activated within your setup and configuration. The other thing that it's done, like in the inventory section, is that it's made it where you can configure it, but you don't have to go through and make predetermined decisions on whether it's going to impact the inventory calculation or not. It's got that logic built into it for you already. Some other things that it's done is under like the security or the setups is it made it one screen for all of your GL mapping, and they've made it so you could add and delete rows much easier, as well as sorting them so that you can get a good visual of what has been set up and how it's been processed on your transactions. Before, it was just a very long list that it could make it tough to kind of troubleshoot or look at how it's being set up. And then things like the permissions, if it's not activated around the groups, it's just you're not going to see that functionality in there. So it makes it very simple and clean that for the things you're not utilizing, it's not going to have choices that could confuse the situation. And then one of the big things that come out of this is when we look at the different transaction definitions and the different pieces that come into play, you can now set up the order that you want them to go. So before on the transactions, we'd have to label them, a 1, 2, 3 if we wanted some level of numbering scheme or sequencing that would come in. Now we get the opportunity of just putting it in and having it show up based off the order that we've put it in. So that's a nice feature in there where it says, stop embedding a number. It's no longer necessary. All right, so order entry and revenue management. So a couple things on this, and I like this concept and where Intacct is heading along this is being able to email attachments and have that go out. So you can have a invoice template that has attachments on it, and then every time that invoice gets emailed, the attachments go. So the power of this is attached, receipts or travel receipts or anything along those lines that you want to go out to your customers on a regular basis along with the invoices. You could set that up so it can work for you along those lines. It's a pretty simple setup under your email template is to checkbox the include documents attachments in the email. And I just want to give a word of caution that if you checkbox that and the email goes out, any and all attachments will go along with the invoice. So if you attach something that's a note or contract that you might not want to go out to the customer, the unfortunate thing is if it's a part of that email template, it will be going out to the customer. And so how it works is when you're in the print email, you can actually view or visualize the attachments. So when you click into the transaction and the little paperclip view, it'll show the attachments that are there. And you can look at it not only at the point of the email, but also in the log as well. So you could look at it exactly what was sent to the customer from the transaction, from a historical transaction as well. All right, the other thing in the revenue recognition is fair value price bands. And this gets into revenue recognition where a company will have to revalue their transaction on a bundled transaction and revalue that if it falls outside of a band or outside of a high-low type concept that comes into play with that. So we'll walk through a couple examples, but basically what it allows you to do is that if your transaction or your pricing for that product falls within the range or within a range, you can just let it be that price that was on the invoice, and you don't have to revalue it or do any calculation behind it. It has the ability to go through and do that check now. And there's some setup that needs to be done along with that, and we'll go through a couple of those examples here. So under fair value price bands, which Intacct used to call, or fair value, which is what Intacct used to call VSOE, they've now just changed the name to fair value. But really what happens on this is when you set up your fair value items, you'll go in and there's a checkbox. You'll see it right in the middle of that area where it says use price range. And it allows you to set that up either by flat dollar amount or a percent. So you could do plus or minus 10%. So as long as your pricing falls within 10% or of the value to the left, in this case it was $10,000, and the closer to the left-hand side of the grid at the bottom that has the value, and then the two columns to the right of it will have a minus and a plus. That's, in this case, it's using it as a percent of 10% higher or 10% lower, and it's as long as it falls within that range, you wouldn't have to necessarily revalue it, and you could just take the price off of the invoice. If it falls outside of it, you can have a choice of how you want to do it, and in this case, the system set up that you could either do the fair value of that item or to the nearest boundary that would come into play. So if you went either too low on your discounting or too high, it would bring that pricing back up as part of the revaluation calculation. So also on this, in terms of like the views, when you set up your list, it will have your items, and then you can see your lower limit and your upper limit on each of those items in your fair value list. And then, so in this case, in this example, there's no price range that comes into play. And so it's really going through and just reallocating it out based off of the fair value that's set up in the system as a calculation. So the top grid is just how the items were set up, and this is without any ranges. And then the allocation down at the bottom, you'll see that in the second column from the right, which is next to the delivery status, how the revenue recognition would be recognized based off of a reallocation, if you will. And that's being based off of the reallocation percent, which is 2 columns to the left. And that reallocation percent is based off of the extended fair value price, which is really your adjusted value, if you will. So it's reducing the license fee and it's increasing the implementation fees, and it's reducing the maintenance off the extended transaction price. All right, so but now if we did the ranges and we had the a similar type transaction with the ranges in there, you would see that the one item, if it falls within the range, you wouldn't necessarily do any reallocation that comes into play, and it would just let the transaction fall as it was originally booked. And then down at the bottom, you can see that that transaction is actually reallocating because the $12,000 on the transaction went above the upper range of $11,000, and it's reallocating it to the implementation services as that was the offset that came through. So this is a concept that can get fairly complex if you're not doing reallocations, but generically we call it the high-low method, and it's really nice to see this functionality in the system today. And then as reporting and information coming out, so the transactions that you book, it'll be able to identify, did you need to reallocate or not? And over on the right-hand side of the report, it's noting the yes, no, so you can get an idea of, did it just fall within the bands or did you reallocate it? All right, so enough of revenue and revenue recognition. Let's go on to payables. So there's a new functionality in there of a draft payables. So the concept around this is so that as you're working on maybe an AP posting or transaction and something comes up and you're not ready to finish it, or you wanted to confirm how it's getting posted, you can save it as a draft, and that draft, it won't post to the general ledger, but it'll be saved as a draft in the system. And the concept is, you can see a couple different plays come from here. One is just, I need some time to finish up what's being done, or you could have it as a draft and then have someone else come in and change it from a draft to a posted transaction after they've reviewed the transaction. So there's a couple different workflows that we could envision being done with that. So, but regardless, having the ability to save it as a draft is a nice feature. If a transaction is a draft, up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see it marked as draft. And so to change that, you would just click on the post, and it would change it from being a draft to a posted transaction. So, how you use it, you don't have to do anything special other than make sure that you have permissions to do it. So if you go into the permissions for the people that will be using it, there are some setups that you'll want to make sure are activated around posting draft transactions. And then the other AP functionality is around the AP terms discount. And so if you go to the AP terms on there, there's now a new section that's highlighted in red that states, for this discount, do you want to calculate it on the line item totals, excluding add-on charges? And so add-on charges would be things like shipping and sales tax. And this would allow you to take a terms just off of the line item totals versus the total. It's something that has been done in the AR side for quite some time, and they've now enabled this on the AP side as well. All right, so projects. So one of the things that they've done is generate invoices based off of a customer or project currency. where before it was a manual process. You can now identify whether you want the currency for that project to be billed off of the customer or the project. And so there's a couple things that we'll need to do around setup in order to make this work out. So under the customer information, which is the top grid, on the additional tab, there's a currency that comes into play. And then underneath the project, on the invoice options, there's a new drop down that says invoice currency override. And so where this really comes into play is you may have a customer with a default currency of British pounds, and they may have multiple projects, and maybe there's one project that they want to have billed out in euros for whatever reason. This is a functionality that would enable that to happen. Likewise, when you're getting ready to generate your project invoices, you would be able to identify and select how do you want to utilize the currency. So the default is just take it off the project customer default, or you can manually select it and override it. So that functionality of manually doing that is there today, and now it's creating it to be in a more automated way. All right, another concept around the multi-currency is being able to do budgets, and being able to have budgets at the top level being able to be done in a currency as well. And so on the project currency, you'll identify under the additional tab, the project currency. And then on the project summary, you could enter in the budgeted billing amount and the budgeted costs, and it would be the 29,500 would be in Canadian dollars in this example, not in US dollars or in the base currency of the system. So it's allowing to have you get that matched up as well. Another project's functionality is on the invoices. And this functionality allows you to take more information off of the project header information and get that onto your invoices. So that's a nice feature of being able to do additional billing or information that wasn't available before. So if you need to modify invoices or take a look at it, you can add these additional fields onto your invoices that weren't available before. All right, we're getting close to being able to wrap up. This session has gone on quite fast this time, but some other enhancements that are out there. We have within the, when you have a multi-entity shared environment, it now clearly states that you're at the top level of the system. So it'll identify whether you're in an individual country or whether you're at the top level. It's allowing that to be shown pretty straightforward and get more clarity into where are you doing the work. The other piece of it is setting some consistency around approval currencies. And so think of the employee expense accounts and purchasing, and having the ability to have standardized amounts going across the company in terms of the value and the currency that's coming into play. So in this case, you can configure the multi-entity, and under the preferences, you can have the value approval currency setup, so you could choose your currency of your choice. So it's a consistent process. And then you can also, when you configure like the purchasing approvals, it'll have it the view when you have the value approval level down at the bottom section. It'll state what that currency is in. So like, for example, on the screen before of the overall setup, it said euros. So now on the configure purchasing, it is tracking that on the euros as well, and it states it on the screen. And again, this is another screen from the configure time and expense. And so this is, again, just leveraging that concept of approvals by the specific currency. All right, so something Intacct's been talking about for quite some time is really starting to get released. out there. We're expecting it to be any day, broad-based, and that's the Intacct Collaborate, and that is leveraging the Salesforce chatter within your Intacct system. And so it's a great tool for those that are using Salesforce and being able to tie in chatter from Salesforce and Intacct together. But you don't have to have Salesforce in order to use chatter within Intacct. There is a way we can configure it so that you can take advantage of that functionality and feature and be able to roll it out within your Intacct environment and really track comments and information that are going back and forth. And this is a really new concept coming out in the accounting industry, where before, we maybe tracked approvals in email or comments in email. This is changing the direction of how accounting teams and operations teams are communicating to each other and keeping a record of it. So for example, if there's questions around a bill or a communication around it, you can add in that additional clarity so that everyone that needs to go in and look at that bill will have that information or clarity. So it could be something along the lines of, hey, why do we spend so much money on this event? And then the person that coordinated the event might put back, well, we had all of our top customers there, and here's the things that came from that. It really creates that record in the system so that now it's attached to the transaction, and it creates that history. So in 4 or 5 months, when you need to have that same question asked, you already have the answer in the system. So it's really changing that concept that you don't have to go back and review emails or save emails into that special directory or save them into that folder for future follow-up or reference. It's changing it to get it part of your accounting records now. And we expect that to get rolled out here any day now in terms of it coming out. It'll be a good, fun piece of functionality in Intacct. And it's not a huge, lengthy deployment. It's a configuration. There's no integration that needs to be done. It is really a configurable solution. So please let us know if this is something you'd like to roll out when it becomes fully available. And the best part is there's no additional charges. It comes with your core product that you have today. So everyone has access to this. All right, the other thing that Intacct really takes serious is security within the system. And so you'll start seeing some additional two-step verification, and that will be if you see changes, it'll start sending notifications and emails. There'll be more granularity around and view into the security options, and including administrators getting prompted to use two-step verification about every 60 days if they do not activate it. So the encouragement is to really make sure that who has access into the system is really the right people. So Intacct is really moving this along really nice and trying to make sure everyone's system is secure. So if you are not using two-step verification, we strongly recommend that you do make sure that that's deployed today. All right, another piece or functionality is what we call budget notes, and that's where you can put notes into budgets. So the business case that we see this getting used in most cases is if you have an original budget and then there's a forecast and you want to be able to make some type of secondary comment, like so for example, hired second sales member or something along those lines, you can then have that show up on one of the standard budget reports that comes in the system. So it's a nice way to keep that information all in one system. All right, so we have joining us today will be Sharon Lindsay West, the CEO of Track 1099, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about 1099s and W-9s and how you can automate that step and take some of the pressure at year end off your plate. Lindsay, are you?
I am here. Thanks, Scott.
Yes.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah, we sure can.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. So we feel your pain with 1099 season. It is not a pleasant time of year. So a group of us from Stanford created Track 1099 5 years ago with the goal of making dealing with the IRS a little bit less challenging. We're an approved Intacct partner, which is great. We've been working with them for the past 4 years, and since our founding, we've had over 50,000 clients use us. And we have people ranging from like sole proprietorships, just filing 1 or 2 1099s, up to public companies, you know, filing tens of thousands of 1099s. So we offer a full range of services, particularly designed for teams and for tax professionals. Our goal was to make the process completely paper-free, and so as a result, it's super cost-effective, as low as 55 cents a form for e-file, e-delivery, and e-corrections, as well as all of the download PDFs, CSV files, state files for California that you could ever want. With e-file, as most of you probably know, there are no more 1096s, and if you're filing W-2s, there's no more W-3s, there's no more lost forms if you do e-delivery. But we do offer a postal mail service as needed, recognizing that not everybody has emails for their vendors yet. All right, next slide, Scott, please. Thanks. So like Intacct, we are an online service, and all of the IRS and recipient information is online, accessible by you and members of your team. We have a dashboard designed for what we call the super CPA, as well as the team members, where you can assign a specific team member or members to particular payers for them to manage. We find that this time of year, clients are mostly interested in our online W-9 service. This is where you send emails to recipients from our service, and they fill out the forms, the vendors fill out the forms online, including an e-signature, and then you can manage all of your vendors online. It's a very nice service. We also include W-4s and W-8s, and you can try it for free for 14 days. So give it a try. It is very well loved by our clients, and then at the end of the day, you can either transfer it over to 1099s or upload it to your vendors in Intacct. When it comes to entering 1099s, 1099 filing is super straightforward in January. We offer all of the 1099 series forms, like all 20 or 25 of them, even the esoteric ones. We also do 1042S as well as W-2s. This year we will also offer Obamacare 1094 and 1095C, so check back with us in late October. So let's see, where are you? Why don't you go back one slide, Scott, if you don't mind. Thank you. So to use our service, super easy. You first just sign up on our homepage, and then you would choose the form that you want to do right now, either W-9 or the 1099 series. And if you're doing 1099s, you just enter payer info straight away. Next slide. With Intacct, we suggest that you use our generic CSV template in order to import your 1099 recipients using your Intacct 1099 CSV output. One of your reports that you can get is a CSV file from Intacct for your miscellaneous INTs or DIV recipients. And from that, you can cut and paste into our generic template. Once you've uploaded, we offer you a table where you can review everybody that you've entered in. We do basic error checking for you too to make sure you're not submitting bad information to the IRS. And then with one button, you can schedule e-file, e-delivery, and if you need to, postal mail. And you have full control over when things are sent to the IRS, which is usually March, and then for your recipient e-delivery, that usually goes out in January. And you can print and mail yourself for free also if you wish, or if you need a postal mail, we can use our additional postal mail service. All right, next slide, please. Once you've scheduled e-delivery and IRS e-file, our all payers dashboard shows you all of your companies or all of your payers that you're managing in one place, all of the forms, as well as the IRS status, e-delivery, and postal mail services. And those statuses will be updated as we send things to the IRS or as your recipients accept their e-delivery. So we can tell when someone on the recipient side is actually picked up their 1099, which is a very nice positive way to know that they've been received. You also do e-corrections very easily online, and we show when we automatically sense and send e-corrections to the IRS as you need to. For postal mail, we see if we're mailing them for you, then we keep track of how many we've mailed, and we mark those within each payer. You can track which ones have been postal mailed versus e-delivery. Yeah, it's a very easy way to see everything that you've been doing. If you have teammates and you're the super CPA, there's another column on the right side that'll show which teammates actually have access to each pair. So a nice, great visibility into who is managing which company for you. All right, next slide. So that's pretty much it. You're done. Once you have the CSV filled out and uploaded, it can take as little as 20 minutes to do all of your 1099 filing, including e-delivery. The beautiful thing about e-file, no 1096, and with our paper-free process, you no longer have to deal with the IRS red forms or people losing their 1099s throughout the year. We do save things year to year, so if you want to transfer information, that's no problem. And we have a lot of really short, helpful videos at the bottom of our homepage that show you how things work and let you drill down a little bit deeper in some of the more detailed services we offer. So go ahead and sign up for us for free, with us for free. There's no credit card required when you sign up. We don't charge you ever until you schedule e-file. And we have a great client support@track1099.com, and just drop us a note. We'd like to hear from you.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. This is fantastic because every year, as we get closer to the year, we get tons of questions around how can we automate our 1099s? How can we get this electronically processed and taken care of? And I think this is a great functionality and feature to take advantage of, and particularly around planning for it early and take advantage of just making sure you have your plan. So I encourage you to get signed up and take that pain off your plate in January. Would be the right track. All right, thank you. And then we will have Scott Mangelson talk about our Salesforce offerings and how we can help you with Salesforce. Scott?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an exciting day for me today to be able to talk about a couple of announcements and some offerings to make you aware of from Armanino. So what we're offering today is full Salesforce.com support in the context of your Intacct implementations and so what we have the ability now to do and have the support for general support for Salesforce.com. We have the ability to integrate your Intacct system with your CRM system. Armanino provides some intellectual property around standard integrations, custom integrations, some of the new not-for-profit integrations. So we're really excited about what Salesforce is doing there. A lot of companies that we're talking to are just generally needing enhancements or improvements. Maybe the system's not been optimized for a while and you'd like someone to come in and help. And so we're available to do that, or extend your Salesforce. Maybe you're using it for sales and you'd like to consider what it would take to do something in marketing or customer service. And then we also all just do general evaluations. We can come in and help you take a look at it. So it's really a full service Salesforce.com, both evaluation and implementation and tune-up for your system there. So on the next slide, we've got a couple things to get you excited about in terms of some promotions that we're running. And the first one is a Salesforce.com assessment. And what we'll do for that is come in and spend an afternoon with you and your subject matter experts and take a look at your current state of your Salesforce environment. Are you leveraging it both standalone as well as in the context of Intacct? And then make some recommendations for you. And it's a free of charge assessment, but in the end you'll get an estimate for what those recommendations are, and if you would like our help or even to do it yourself, what that level of effort might look like and how long, based on our experience, it would take for that to happen. So that's the first one. And the second one is a Salesforce.com support promotion. And this promotion is good through the month of October. It's a 2-for-1 offer. So for every 2 hours we spend with you, we will only bill you for 1. And we can do that up to a total of 24 hours. Again, you can use it for just about anything in terms of supporting for Salesforce.com support. It's not intended to be a replacement for full projects. So if you're implementing Salesforce or it's really required for your help on implementing Salesforce, that's really not the intent, but it is intended for your support calls and technical support, and doing things like workflows and reports and extending the capability that you've got there. So anyway, so that if you have any interest in either one of those, you feel free to contact me. My contact information is here. You can always get me at Scott at Armanino in the CRM practice, and I'm happy to help out. So, but anyway, those are two exciting announcements for today, and I hope you'll take advantage of them if you have Salesforce.com.
All right, thank you, Scott. Yeah, from a standpoint of the Armanino client base, we do see quite a few customers that have some pain in that Salesforce area where they'd like to automate and integrate better. And in a lot of cases, they just need some help and guidance. And the salespeople talking to salespeople of how do you see best practices work has been very helpful in that perspective. So thank you, Scott, for letting everyone know how we can help. And then just in conclusion for today, we went through very, very quick, so we saved you about 15 minutes in your day today. But we covered the Intacct's core Q3 release, and then how to do some processing of 1099s at the end of the year with the tax 1099, and then also just how to get some help around Salesforce and get some support in that area. So are there any questions that are out there that anyone would like to ask?
It looks like we do have at least one question here coming in, but if anyone else has any additional questions, feel free to submit them. And as Scott Mengelson mentioned, we will put both Scott's contact information up on the last slide, and then of course we'll send it out. So if anyone has any questions for follow-up, you're welcome to check on those as well. So Scott Schimberg, we did get one question that was, does a draft invoice post to the GL?
No, it doesn't. It posts it to the AP module, but it does not post it to the general ledger. Only the posted transactions will actually post to the general ledger.
Great. Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
So it looks like, actually, surprisingly, that's about all the questions we have today. So thank you to our three presenters for being great explainers today. You guys did such a good job. Nobody had questions. I did want to note that both Scott's contact information is up on the screen, as I mentioned. And like Scott Mengelson said, if you do have any questions about that Salesforce support 2-for-1 offer or the assessment, definitely feel free to contact him directly, and he can answer any questions you have about that. And we will be sending out the contact information or the slides with their contact information, so you don't have to worry about copying those down really quick here. But that does wrap up our webinar today. We'll give you guys about some extra time back in your day. As you exit, there is a quick survey, so definitely take a moment to let us know your thoughts on today's webinar so we can continue bringing you great content. Thanks, everyone.